never services, not with subs. Thank you. It may appear unimportant, but it's actually very important.
Noted, Chair. Thank you for that, Commissioner Khumalo. So, Chair, the first topic is the question of the tenders. And I would like to clarify that what the purpose of us going here is. It's not a roving inquiry into ordinary procurement irregularities or garden variety tender fraud. It's directed at whether a SAPS officer, a crime intelligence officer, a senior member of the service, was a conduit for private, commercial, or criminal interests, and whether they were able to gain access or influence or corrupt or compromise law enforcement structures. As such, it falls squarely within the terms of reference of this commission. So that's the approach and the framing that I'd like the commissioners to bear in mind as we enter the discussion on the tenders. The first set of tenders relate to a gentleman by the name of Mr. Mo Sayed, and he is a director of a company called Carnilinks. And Chair, I'm going to read the submission that they have provided to us. They provided it last night, and I think it's important in all fairness to read it into the record. And I'd like you, please, to have a look at page 129 of the answering affidavit before I do so.
What's the file marked on the spine?
Urgent application, answering papers, file 1 of 2.
You said which page? I've forgotten now.
Page 129.
Thank you.
And the heading is Carnilinks and illegal tobacco trading.
We've all got it now.
Thank you, Chair. This is relevant because when I read out the submission, you'll see it's partly a response to what the Commission placed in its answering papers. And in that section on page 129, in paragraph 14, we say that there have been consistent allegations that Carnilinks is engaged in illegal tobacco trading.
Maybe, sorry, Ms. Hassim, maybe for the record you should say who deposed to the affidavit, if it wasn't protected information.
Who deposed to the answering affidavit. And as luck would have it, my copy doesn't have the signature on it. This is, in fact, if I'm correct, where it says for over a decade there have been consistent allegations that Carnilinks is engaged in illegal tobacco trading, points us to several pieces of documentation. The first you'll see in 14.1 are several media reports, and I'm not going to go there. It shows that the allegations had been widely published and in some detail. In 14.2, there are 2 further documents that are attached. One is a media statement by the South African Tobacco Transformation Alliance, and the other is an Ipsos study. Now, this is not the entire basis upon which we make these allegations, and I'll explain why. But I'm going to go to the Carney Link submission because it's in response to this that they provide the submission. And let me go right there. Chair.
Were they invited to make this submission?
They were not invited to make the submission. It's a voluntary submission, and it'll be apparent when I read this, the context in which they do make it. And as I said, Chair, I think given that I am going to go in some detail through the chat, it's important that their version is placed on record before I do so. Sorry, Chair. Okay, let me begin. So, Chair, the submission is signed by Mr. Adriano Mazzotti, and it was provided to the Commission yesterday evening. If I start at paragraph 1, these submissions are made voluntarily by Carney Links Pty Limited. Carney Links. Carney Links has not been issued with a notice by the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into Criminality, Political Interference and Corruption in the Criminal Justice System, the Commission, nor has it been requested or directed to provide evidence or submissions. The company nevertheless considers it appropriate in the interests of fairness and to assist the Commission in the proper discharge of its mandate to place certain relevant facts before it. Carney Links has become aware that allegations concerning the company appear in the affidavit deposed to by the Commission's investigator, Tsepo Nyatlo, as well as in the Rule 3 notice issued to one of its directors, Mohammed Sayed, in his personal capacity. Although the Rule 3 notice is directed exclusively to Sayed and not to Carney Links, the company is concerned that allegations affecting its business, reputation, and commercial standing may ultimately be considered without the benefit of Carney Links' own explanation and the broader factual and regulatory context within which those allegations arise. Carney Links accordingly tenders these submissions voluntarily. It does so not to challenge the Commission's mandate, nor to relitigate historical regulatory matters with the South African Revenue Service, but to assist the Commission by placing system. It has no interest in shielding unlawful conduct by any person or entity and welcomes any lawful process that advances accountability, transparency, and the rule of law. At the same time, Carney Links respectfully submits that findings affecting the reputation of any corporate entity should be based upon credible, independently verifiable evidence and should distinguish carefully between historical regulatory defaults, historical conduct voluntarily disclosed pursuant to Chapter 16 of the Tax Administration Act, unresolved tax disputes being determined through statutory mechanisms, allegations made by competitors or industry participants, media reports and public commentary, industry-sponsored reports, and evidence capable of establishing present-day unlawful conduct. It is against that background that Carney Links respectfully places the following facts before the Commission. Carney Links is a South African cigarette manufacturer duly incorporated in accordance with the laws of the Republic. Carney Links was established in May 2011 and has for approximately 15 years operated within one of the most comprehensively regulated industries in South Africa. During that period, it has grown into an established South African manufacturer operating under licenses issued by the South African Revenue Service, investing substantially in local manufacturing capacity, and contributing meaningfully to the South African economy. Carney Links is the holder of a valid cigarette manufacturing license issued by SARS in terms of the Custom and Excise Act, a copy of which is attached, marked A for your reference. The company operates under that license and remains subject to continuous regulatory oversight by SARS. The manufacture of tobacco products is governed by an extensive legislative and regulatory framework, including licensing requirements, excise controls, customs supervision, record-keeping obligations, inspections, audits, and enforcement powers administered by SARS. Carney Links conducts its business within that statutory framework. Carney Links is a South African taxpayer and has throughout its existence engaged with SARS as the regulator responsible for the administration of the customs and excise regime applicable to licensed tobacco manufacturers. In this regard, we annex here to Carney Links' tax compliance certificate marked B. Carney Links contributes to the South African economy through investment in manufacturing infrastructure, the payment of taxes, and the creation of sustainable employment opportunities. The company directly employs approximately 100 South Africans and supports many additional livelihoods throughout its value chain, including tobacco merchants, transport operators, logistic providers, warehousing businesses, packaging suppliers, distributors, and retailers. Over the course of its operations, Carney Links has invested substantially in manufacturing facilities, plant, equipment, and distribution infrastructure within South Africa. Carney Links is also a member of the Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association, an association representing independent tobacco manufacturers and advocating for lawful competition, effective regulation, and meaningful measures to combat illicit trade. Like every legitimate participant in the regulated tobacco industry, Carney Links has a direct commercial interest in ensuring that illicit trade is effectively addressed. Illicit trade undermines compliant manufacturers, deprives the fiscus of significant revenue, and distorts lawful competition. Under the heading of historical regulatory matters, considerable reliance has been placed in the public domain and more recently in the affidavit deposed to by the Commission's investigator upon an affidavit deposed to by Carney Links Director Adriano Mazzotti on 6 May 2014. Carney Links does not seek to distance itself from the existence of that affidavit or from the fact that it contains admissions concerning historical conduct. Carney Links respectfully submits, however, that the affidavit cannot properly be understood unless it is considered within the statutory and factual context in which it was prepared. During 2014, Carney Links engaged with SARS in a comprehensive disclosure process concerning historical tax matters, with the objective of making full disclosure concerning historical tax compliance and seeking to regularize its tax affairs under the applicable tax legislation administered by SARS, including the Tax Administration Act, Customs and Excise Act, the Value Added Tax Act, the Income Tax Act, and any other legislation applicable to the matters under consideration. Adriano Mazzotti, in his capacity as director of Carney Links, deposed to an affidavit. Carney Links and SARS subsequently adopted differing positions concerning aspects of that engagement and its outcome. Carney Links does not consider it necessary or appropriate for this commission to determine those issues. They properly fall within the statutory framework governing the administration of tax legislation and the relationship between a taxpayer and the revenue authority. For present purposes, what is material is that the affidavit was prepared in the context of Carney Links' engagement with SARS concerning historical tax compliance and for the purposes of that disclosure process. The affidavit was intended to form part of a confidential engagement between Carney Links and SARS. At some stage thereafter, information purporting to originate from that affidavit entered the public domain without Carney Links' knowledge or authority. Carney Links is not in possession of the versions presently relied upon or quoted by various media organizations and is accordingly unable to verify their authenticity, completeness, or accuracy. Nor have the affidavits relied upon in media reports or the versions presently circulating publicly been published in full. Carnelinx is therefore unable to determine whether quotations attributed to the affidavit accurately reflect the original document, whether they have been reproduced completely or whether they have been presented out of context. Carnelinx further notes that the aspects of the media reporting concerning Carnelinx, Mazzotti, and the historical tax affairs have previously been found by the press ombudsman to have been inaccurate. The Commission is therefore respectfully requested to approach media reports concerning these matters with appropriate caution and to place reliance upon primary evidence properly before it. Carnelinx accordingly submits that any assessment of the affidavit should be undertaken only with reference to the original document, its statutory and factual context, and the evidence properly before the Commission, and not by reference to excerpts, summaries, and characterizations appearing in media reports or public commentary. The affidavit demonstrates that Carnelinx engaged with SARS concerning historical tax matters. It does not, without more, establish that Carnelinx presently conducts its affairs unlawfully or forms part of any alleged criminal enterprise. The Commission is therefore respectfully requested to distinguish between historical regulatory engagement, ongoing tax administration processes, and allegations of present-day criminality. Under the heading Carnelinx's present regulatory position, following its engagement with SARS concerning historical tax matters, Carnelinx continued to operate as a licensed manufacturer under the regulatory oversight of SARS. The company has remained subject to inspections, audits, verifications, and assessments by SARS in the ordinary course. As is the case with many taxpayers operating within highly regulated industries, Carnelinx has from time to time been the subject of assessments and findings by SARS. Certain findings have been accepted and the relevant liabilities discharged. Other findings have been disputed through the statutory objection, appeal, and review mechanisms established under the South African tax legislation. Carnelinx respectfully submits that the unresolved tax disputes cannot properly be equated with criminal conduct. The Tax Administration Act creates mechanisms through which taxpayers and SARS may legitimately differ on questions of fact and law. South Africa's tax legislation, including the Tax Administration Act, creates comprehensive mechanisms through which taxpayers and SARS may legitimately differ on questions of fact, law, and the proper interpretation and application of the legislation. The existence of such disputes is a recognized feature of tax administration and should not without more be equated with criminal conduct. The existence of such disputes is not unusual in tax administration and should not without more be treated as evidence of unlawful conduct. Under the heading, the Nyatlo Affidavit. Carnelinx has carefully considered the allegations contained in the affidavit deposed to by Nyatlo. To the extent that those allegations concern Carnelinx, they are denied. Carnelinx respectfully submits that portions of the affidavit appear to conflate historical regulatory matters, unresolved tax disputes, media reports, and industry commentary with evidence of present-day criminality. Those concepts should be carefully distinguished. Historical regulatory matters and ongoing tax administration processes cannot without more establish present-day criminal conduct. Likewise, unresolved tax disputes cannot be equated with findings of fraud, tax evasion, or organized criminal activity. Under the heading SATTA, Ipsos, and Industry Material. Carnelinx notes that portions of the Nyatlo affidavit appear to rely upon publications issued by industry organizations and market reports prepared by third parties. Carnelinx respectfully submits that such material should be approached with appropriate caution. Industry bodies perform an important role in the public debate. However, they are not independent regulators, courts, or investigative authorities. Their publications frequently reflect commercial interests and policy positions. Likewise, retail pricing studies and market surveys may identify pricing trends or market anomalies. They do not establish whether excise duty has been paid in respect of any particular product. Nor do they establish whether a manufacturer has committed tax evasion, fraud, smuggling, or any other criminal offence. Carney Links further submits that media reports, publications produced by representative organizations and market studies are each different forms of material carrying different evidential weight. While such material may contribute to public debate, it does not constitute primary evidence of criminal conduct. Serious findings against any person or corporate entity should be based upon reliable, independently verifiable evidence properly before the Commission. Under the heading, Carney Links' interaction with law enforcement. The Nyatwa affidavit further suggests that Carney Links improperly utilized organs of state against competitors. Carney Links unequivocally denies those allegations. Carney Links, like any responsible corporate citizen, Carney Links has, where appropriate, reported information concerning suspected unlawful conduct to the relevant authorities. There is nothing improper in providing information to SARS, SAPS, or any other competent authority. Once such information is provided, all investigative and enforcement decisions remain those of the relevant authority acting under its own statutory powers. Carney Links has never exercised control over the investigative functions of SARS, SAPS, or any other organ of state. Conclusion. Carney Links has made these submissions voluntarily because it believes that the Commission should have before it the company's own account before reaching conclusions that may affect its reputation and commercial standing. Carney Links does not seek to minimize its history or avoid scrutiny, nor does it ask the Commission to determine disputes between itself and SARS concerning historical tax matters. Those matters are regulated by legislation and remain subject to the statutory mechanisms provided by South African law. Carney Links asks only that its history be understood in its proper statutory, factual, and commercial context. The question presently before the Commission is whether there exists credible, reliable, and independently verifiable evidence establishing the allegations presently made against Carney Links. Carney Links respectfully submits that those questions should be answered on the basis of evidence relevant to the issues before the Commission and not by inference drawn solely from historical regulatory engagement, unresolved tax disputes, media reporting, industry advocacy, or commercial rivalry. Carney Links has voluntarily approached this Commission because it believes that the search for the truth is best served when all relevant perspectives are placed before it. It respectfully trusts that these submissions will assist the Commission in fulfilling its constitutional mandate fairly, objectively, and in accordance with the rule of law. Carney Links remains willing to cooperate further with the Commission and reserves its right to supplement these submissions should additional information become relevant. Yours faithfully, Adriano Mazzotti, and then there are two annexures, A and B, that were referred to in the letter. So the letter, so Chair, now you see why I first went to the answering affidavit and those paragraphs, because what Mr. Mazzotti is taking issue with is the reliance on what he describes as media reports that are not based on independent evidence, not based, as far as he can tell, on the affidavit itself, and that the affidavit that the Commission put up also included industry-obtained analysis, research analysis, like the Ipsos study, which was commissioned by Carney Links' competitor. It was commissioned by British American Tobacco. So that's fine, we accept that. What I wish to do, however...
Have you touched on the fact that they also say some of the material is historical, which I understand to mean and is no longer applicable?
Well, it's historical in the sense that the admissions that were made by Mr. Mazzotti took place some years ago. But it's not historical when looked at in the perspective of this Commission about particular conduct. And it's not just about Carney Links as an entity, it's about Mr. Sayed, who's a director of Carney Links. So it relates both to findings against Carney Links of illegal tobacco trading, not based on media reports. And I will go to Mr. Mazzotti's own affidavit to bear out that submission. But also, our evidence is based on Mr. Mo Sayed's alleged conduct. And at no point have we ever said that there are proven criminal cases and charges against Mr. Sayed. But there are very serious allegations. And in the context of a commission of inquiry, we are entitled to rely on that and to consider that in the course of the investigation of the commission. So, Chair, a lot of what is said in the submission is answered by direct reference to Mr. Bozotti's affidavit that was provided to SARS. It is a 2014 affidavit. The settlement agreement that was concluded between Carney Links and SARS was only concluded in 2020. And in fact, I don't propose to go to it in detail, but it is before the commissioners, and I'll just take you to the page reference in a moment. The basis